Hi there. I'm so excited to welcome you to the Arthritis Life podcast, where we share arthritis life stories and tips for thriving with autoimmune arthritis. My name is Cheryl Crow, and I am passionate about helping people navigate real life with arthritis beyond joint pain. I've been living with rheumatoid arthritis for 20 years, and I'm also a mom, occupational therapist, video creator, support group leader, and I created the Room to Thrive self-management program. I am so excited to help you live a more empowered life with arthritis. We're going to cover everything from kitchen life hacks to navigating the healthcare system to coping with friends who just don't get it. Seriously, no topic is going to be off limits on this podcast. My interviewees and I share our honest stories of how chronic illness affects our lives. This includes discussions about mental health, sex, shame, pregnancy, body image, advocacy, self-acceptance, and so much more. You'll hear stories from all ends of the spectrum, from a person who's living in medicated remission from psoriatic arthritis to somebody living with severe mobility restrictions and severe pain from rheumatoid arthritis. You'll hear how people manage their conditions in different ways, like medications, mindfulness, movement, social support, work accommodations, and so much more. You'll also hear from rheumatology experts who just get it. We'll dive deep into the science behind chronic pain and what's the latest evidence for lifestyle changes that can help you thrive with arthritis, including exercise, sleep, nutrition, stress reduction, and more. This is your chance to sit down and chat with a friend who's been there. Ready to figure out how to manage your arthritis life? Let's get started. All right, I'm so excited to have Zac Spinosa today to share his story and talk a little bit about why strength training is so important for people with inflammatory arthritis. So welcome, Zac. Can you let everyone know where do you live and what is your relationship to arthritis?
Hello, everybody. I'm Zac Spinosa. I'm 28 years old now. I feel like I'm getting older by the day, which I guess I am. And I'm from basically Niagara, Ontario, Canada. And I got arthritis. I was diagnosed 13 years ago now, 14 years ago when I was 15. And I was dealing with growing pains, what I thought were growing pains, for about 4 or 5 years at this point. And I was a relatively active kid and did a lot of stupid things where I would get hurt. So could have chalked it up to about anything. And my relationship with arthritis is in short form. At one point in my life, I was extremely active, MVP of my school teams, junior athlete of the year, to the point where the end of that year came, I was on a walker and I was unable to put on my own clothes, to brush my own teeth. And because of that, I went on medications that created a significant amount of weight gain and loss of mobility and lost myself. And fast forward, I almost actually died to arthritis from some complications. So we'll get to that story in the future.
Yeah, thank you. It is something that, the juvenile idiopathic arthritis carries with it the risk of some, like, actually more deadly complications than even adult rheumatoid arthritis, which is what I have. So I feel like people need to be informed of this. I'm jumping ahead, but we both actually were at juvenile arthritis camps over the weekend, by the way, for people listening. So I've lost my voice a little bit because of all the yelling and the singing and all the fun stuff at camp, but they actually covered that in the parent group that the doctors gave them at our camp about macrophage activation syndrome and what to look out for. So,
Crazy.
but let's go back to your story. So when did you get the official diagnosis, of juvenile idiopathic?
Yeah. So I got officially diagnosed when I was just about to turn 16. I was systemic juvenile idiopathic arthritis, which I found out over the weekend is one of the most rare kinds to get. And I was getting extreme rashes on my body. So it wasn't necessarily extreme joint pain at the time or swelling. It was mostly the crazy hives, like all over my arms and on my chest and my back. And it was so painstaking that I would like scratch while I was sleeping and wake up covered in blood. And it was terrible. And then from there, the rashes started to go away after the diagnosis, but the pain kept coming and getting worse to the point where now I have wrist fusion. If you're watching this, you'll see my wrist not bending very well. And it was a really tough transition, right? From being an athletic kid where my entire identity is about being strong, healthy, fit, chasing after girls, all the fun things you do when you're a teenager, to, losing that entire identity and being locked up in a room and having to ask my brother to button up my uniform. Sure. Having to ask my mom to help me brush my teeth, my dad to help me carry me to the bath so I could bathe myself because I wasn't even able to stand in the shower at some point. So it was at 15, that was pretty jarring. And at the time, 13 years ago, there weren't Cheryl Crow, the arthritis queen out here, right? Or even myself, like giving back to the community to understand about strength training and all these different factors that you can do for yourself outside of waiting for the medication to work and for your doctor's diagnosis. So I was kind of in the dark and just in pain, scared, and lost.
Yeah, I'm just so sorry you went through that. And it really is, it's strange how many athletes get JIA and adult inflammatory arthritis. Because I was as well. I went from being the captain of my college soccer team, Division 3, which is not like the highest, not the highest level, but it's definitely, you know, we
Let's go. Yeah.
and I had severe rheumatoid cachexia, like the muscle wasting. So I went from 130 pounds to 105 pounds before I got diagnosed with RA. And similar to you, my joints didn't really bother me. I just had a couple what I thought were sprained fingers, but they
Mhm.
didn't even bother me as much as the more systemic symptoms. So anyway, long story short, that loss of identity, I think particularly what I've heard from other men that I've spoken with is, there's as a young boy or young man or young adult, you're supposed to be quote unquote strong, and then to lose
Yeah, of course.
so hard, I'm imagining. Yeah.
And for me, that's exactly it, right? In my friend group, I was the fastest guy. When we'd wrestle in the pool or wrestle and stuff, it was my whole thing was being the tough guy in a sense. And unfortunately, I didn't have the knowledge on how to discuss what I was going through, or neither did my parents, of course. There wasn't enough resources out there for people to know. And everybody just thinks of arthritis as this old person's disease. You can't really see it. I was also kind of a whiner as a kid too, right? So it was hard to know, like, is it really that bad? Like, how bad could it be? And then funny enough, now I'm the complete opposite where things could be terrible and I don't even say anything to people, right? So it was tough. So I lost a lot of my friends during this process. It was also the time when people started drinking and doing drugs and all those types of things. And thankfully, I never did any of that stuff. But it was a hard decision to make because the only thing I could do to be around my friends was to do those types of things. And I didn't. And I also couldn't realistically. I wasn't able to leave my room. And no 16-year-old kid, especially boys that are active, which were all my friends, are going to want to, come over and watch a show or play video games during the summertime. Right. So that kind of really sucked for me. And I was 185 pounds in good shape. By no means was I jacked or anything at the time I was a kid. But by the time I got back to grade 11, I was like almost 300 pounds, right? So from the high dose of prednisone and the lack of movement. And when you're a kid, you eat like crazy amounts of crappy food, but you're so active that it doesn't really affect you as bad. It affected me because I wasn't acting anymore, right? Plus medication. So going into school and then dealing with the bullying side of things and being called fat and all these different things, then walking through the hallways with a walker after being this, you know, not giant, but giant athlete of the school. It was scary. It really messed up my mental health side of things. And I'm not one, especially as I'm growing older, I don't like labeling things like depression, anxiety, because I don't think that's necessarily fair to people who deal with it truly. You know what I mean? I was going through a depressive time, and obviously I was anxious about going to school and dealing with things, but I wasn't suffering from like an actual full on mental disorder in a sense, right? And it was just the circumstances therein were terrible. They were treacherous, and I didn't have the tools to deal with them. And it wasn't until I switched out of pediatric care with my arthritis where I met my adult rheumatologist, who's now one of my colleagues and one of my best friends and mentors in life. The guy's an absolute unit. I met him, and I remember the guy was this like beautiful, friggin' stunning jacked guy. And he's, you know what, buddy, you're looking at yourself right now and how you're feeling. And I know it's terrible and the medications aren't working, but we're going to get you on something good. And that's when I was introduced to biologics. And those biologics, like, they definitely worked very well. I went from limping every step that I took to limping a lot less. And there was only days where I'd have really bad pain, and the rest of the days were relatively normal. I'd say a 4 out of 10 is like what I live at with pain, which is to me nothing at this point because it's just normal. But Dr. Saeed Sheikh, he said to me, crazy guy. He grabs my hand and he puts it on his stomach and he's got abs and he goes, "This is gonna be you one day," right? Which is so funny. He's a legend and he can be definitely taken the wrong way by the wrong people. But I was at his house on Friday having dinner with him. And he said to me, he's like, I remember seeing you and your family for the first time, and the look in your eyes, and you were listening, you wanted to get better. And you asked me, what can I do? What can I do to make this better? Not, what are you going to do for me? And that's when he talked to me about exercise. And my dad has had a gym his whole life, not like a business, but just in a home gym. And he was always trying to get me to exercise. And he's like, you got to do it, buddy. You got to do it. And I'm Italian. I'm old. Like my dad, my family's very old school. So my dad's like, all right, it fucking sucks. You're in pain. I get it. And I hate it for you. It kills me. But what are you going to do about it? It's been a year. You're depressed. You're laying in your room doing nothing. You're complaining every single day. And it sucks. And I know that. But you've done fuck all, excuse my language, for the past year, except moan about it. What are you going to do? So then when I meet Saeed and he'd tell me the same thing in a very intellectual doctor way, I'm like, you know what? Maybe it's time for me to try something. So I started walking, and it was as simple as that. I started doing a little bit of walking, 10-minute bouts, 15, 20 minutes. Next thing I know, I'm like, whoa, I'm doing more. Like I couldn't do this 2 weeks ago, but I'm doing it now. What changed? I took action, right? And because of that, I felt so empowered by the fact that it was me doing it. So it wasn't my doctor. It wasn't my parents. It wasn't my friend. I was actually back in control. It wasn't my body beating me up. I was beating this disease up. And that's how I viewed it. I started exercising, lifting weights, and it was little things. Like I could barely squat to a couch. So I squatted at a high chair, and then I couldn't bend my wrist. So I found ways to work with my knuckles to make sure my wrists weren't damaged. And I just found different ways to utilize the tools that I had to strengthen my body. And within a year, I went from almost 300 pounds to 185 pounds. I was looking better. I felt so much mentally better. I had so much more ambition and drive again. And I saw a path forward. And instead of feeling lost and destroyed, I felt, holy shit, like I have a life ahead of me, you know? And I'm so thankful that I actually got diagnosed with arthritis, because I don't think I really grasped how incredible it is and what a privilege it is to move and to have a life that you're in control of, to be born in countries like we're in, where we actually have freedom of choice and expression. It's incredible. So because of arthritis, it changed my whole trajectory of life. And about 3.5 years into this, I turned 21 years old from the time I started exercising, and I opened a personal training studio because everybody around me is asking me, how do I do this? How do I do this? And my dad's like, open a business. So I did it.
That's incredible. And made really sense, like probably partly from your background as an athlete, you had a drive for movement, but it was when your body changed so drastically, it's like no one helped you understand until that doctor. It sounds like that you could still move with this. It's just going to feel a little different and look a little different. I don't know if you ever had this feeling, but a lot of people that I talk with, like in my support groups, even myself, feel like because it's an autoimmune disease, it's like your body is attacking yourself and you almost feel like you're at war with your body. I'll admit, I only started strength training 2 years ago, by the way, and it has made a huge difference for me. It's changed my relationship. Being active changes your relationship to your body and makes you see your body as, I have arthritis and my body can still do awesome stuff. You know, again,
I think that what you said was beautiful there. Like, and there's times where I'm in so much pain when I'm doing some of the crazy things I do. Like I've deadlifted over 600 pounds. I've squatted over 500 pounds. Now I can bench press almost 400 pounds. And right now I'm preparing to fight in 2026 for both Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and Muay Thai, which are probably not great ideas for my body. And I understand that. But my mission, since especially changing my whole shift of gears with really trying to get back to the community of people with arthritis and chronic pain and disorders like this, is if I can do all these crazy, stupid things with my body, with this disease, you can do half of it, which is going to bring you so much more happiness, right? Like freedom of expression and movement is so incredible. And when it's taken away from you, it's the worst feeling ever. I had such a worse experience than just arthritis with macrophage activation syndrome that like completely shifted my perspective on life. And I'm sure we'll get into that. But yeah, I love that you started strength training. That's so good.
100%. And I definitely want to talk about the strength training and also the ways, as you were talking, I was thinking more broadly of reconnecting to the ways that your body can move. I have a friend who has a spinal cord injury. She's never, unless there's a big medical advancement, she's not going to be able to dance the way she used to. But now she's joined like a wheelchair, accessible dancing group and still like discovering ways she can move her arms. Just that kind of mentality of adapting and leaning in to what you can still do is Beautiful. But yeah, let's do that activation syndrome story. Tell me about what age were you at? Because I'm trying to get your timeline clear in my own head too. And what
Yeah. So,
did that feel like?
so like I said, so far we started 15, we're at 21. I'm opening my gym, right? I opened my gym. At this point, I'm almost in medical remission where I'm weaning off my medication. And it gets to the point where I'm completely off medicine. So I'm 2 years into opening my gym, to owning my gym. I'm 22 and a half, 23. And now I'm on all meds. I have zero arthritis symptoms. Obviously, I still have my fusion, but my pain levels are pretty much completely taken care of. So my health and lifestyle has been incredible. I'm training martial arts. I'm training weights. I'm training people. My business is doing well. And, you know, I'm a pretty driven person and I want a lot out of life and I always want to do more. So having a 600 square foot gym for me wasn't enough. So I slowly expanded to 1,800 square feet and then that wasn't enough. So I said to my dad, he's a baker, he's owned a bakery his whole life. The guy who worked harder than anyone ever and he's instilled a lot of my values into me, of course. And I wanted to give back to him. And I knew he wouldn't be able to afford the property that he wanted, which would be, a country farm, nice view, so he can just relax and retire eventually. And I knew I wouldn't be able to afford those things. So I said to him and my brother, I was like, why don't all three of us sell the property we currently have and we go and buy this old, decrepit farm property and build ourselves a future where our dad can retire and we can build our businesses even bigger. So we bought this 20,000 square foot warehouse, farmhouse type thing with 97 acres and we start building my gym. So this is at 24. This is in 2021. COVID's still kind of lingering there. So my gym was closed multiple times, but because I trained professional athletes, I was allowed to stay training, which was pretty cool. But during all this time, my health is at the best it's ever been. I'm 205 pounds, jacked. I was like, oh my God, I feel so great. My business is doing well. My family's great. We just got this new project. Everybody's so excited. And we're doing all the construction ourselves. So like I said, it's a decrepit farm property. So dirt in my barn, have to pour pads, ripping wood out, doing a lot of construction on top of all these things. So I'm putting my body through a lot of physical stress, which I'm sure probably contributed to what was to come in the near months. So obviously the vaccines had rolled out at this point, and immediately after being vaccinated, I had an arthritis flare, like very bad one. As bad as it was, like I couldn't walk again. I couldn't barely put on my clothes again. And that lasted about 2 weeks before I got put back on biologic. And as soon as I got put back on biologic, felt amazing. It's okay, I'm good. Life is back to normal. Let's focus again. It's going to be okay. Fast forward 2 weeks, I'm watching a show on my bed. I'm soaked in sweat. And I'm like, what is going on? This is weird. And I was like, all right. I was also with a lady and she was talking about man colds and how men are babies when they get cold. So I was like, I'm
Oh,
fine.
my
I'm
gosh,
fine. So I
sorry.
played it off like it was nothing, right? And which is not anybody's fault, but it's just funny because, like, of course, I'm going to be like, I'm good. I'm just sweating, whatever. The
That's
next day I wake up, I'm 13 pounds lighter. And I'm like, uh-oh, why am I 193 pounds or 192 pounds? This is not good. And I go to the hospital instantly. They put me on fluids. And they're like, you're jaundice. Something's wrong. Do you take steroids? And I'm like, steroids? What? I'm like, why? They're like, do you do drugs? Do you do steroids? Like, you're a fitness guy. We see you have muscle. Are you on steroids? I'm like, I'm not on any drugs. I'm not taking any PEDs. So they're like, Mom, Dad, do you guys mind leaving the room? I'm 24. And they're like trying to get me to admit it. Are you afraid to speak in front of your parents? I'm like, no, I'm not on drugs. What are you talking about? Your liver is failing.
They
And I'm
knew
like,
though that you had systemic juvenile idiopathic arthritis, right?
yes, but the hospital I was at was not like by any means a good one. It's getting torn down. Great people, good staff and everything, but in our healthcare system is kind of wild here. But I spent
Sorry,
2 weeks in this hospital and they were trying to figure out what was going on. Nobody knows what's happening. They just know my liver's failing. They do a liver biopsy, but they have to go through my jugular. They did a skin biopsy. They're doing all these different things. And I start bleeding profusely out of my nose, out of my neck. They didn't even stitch my neck up after they did the biopsy. And I'm on blood thinners and I'm bleeding everywhere. And within 2 weeks, I was unable to walk. So I was running to the bathroom because I was on type of laxative medication as well for whatever they were trying to treat me for. And then now I'm in a diaper and I'm 24. I'm like, what the hell is going on? It's COVID, so there's no visitors allowed besides one at a time. So my mom's with me the whole time, which is great, but like it's terrible on her. Her health took a big hit because of it. And now I'm in the ICU. I'm crashing. Things aren't good. What are we going to do? My doctor, the one I talked about earlier in the podcast, he is losing it on the staff, and he's trying to advocate for me to get me sent to a specialist hospital in Toronto. So finally, they listened to him. They send me by paramedic in an ambulance to Toronto. It's an hour and 45-minute drive. I remember the drive. It was raining. I'm asking if I can have fluids. And the lady's like, you can't. You're only about 500 milliliters a day. And I'm dying. My sodium levels were so off that if I drank water, I would drown or something. And I remember how crazy it was because I was like fading in and out of like consciousness on this ride there. And now 20 days into being in a hospital, I'm in a different city. I don't know anybody. Obviously, I'm not like I'm going anywhere, but I'm in a bed and I have 13 different doctors asking my age, my name, where I'm from, what I'm doing. And I'm like, why do they keep asking the same question? What I'm not realizing is they're doing a cognitive test on me. They have a neurologist here. They have an oncologist. They have every different type of doctor specialist working on me on this one specialty floor. Now I find out my kidneys are failing. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? They weigh me. This is my third week in the hospital. And like I said, I was 205 pounds the day I got in. I was 153 pounds at this point. I'm like, what the hell? 3 weeks in? Another week goes by. I'm 127 pounds. And now I can't even get out of bed to weigh myself. And the one nurse wasn't paying attention. She tried to weigh me and I fainted. Luckily, I hit my head on the bed and I got up. They put me back in the bed. And I remember every day is going by, it's getting worse and worse. And I've always been like a relatively positive guy for the most part, but I'm getting like scared, right? I'm like, what the fuck is happening to my health? I'm seeing my mom. She's losing her strength, right? Like her protective shield that she's put on. Like we're watching our Netflix shows together just to go through the days, and she's just hurting. And I'm sure I'm my mom's baby, right? So for her, she's holding my hand. She's like crying, but she's trying to get it together. And my dad, like I said, he's a tough dude, but he can't be there. And he comes, and when he's coming, one of the nurses says to me, hey, we're not supposed to tell you these types of things, but like, we know how close you are with your family and your dad. And we got a note from your doctor that it'd be important for you to know where you're at with your health and that you'll handle it. And I'm like, okay, what does that mean? But obviously I'm all fucked up. They're like, this might be the last time you see your dad. So you should tell him everything you want to tell him. And I'm like, holy fuck. So it turns out I have a 30% chance to make it out of this at this point. I'm down to below 130 pounds, anywhere between 120 to 130. I'm completely like dying. Like they don't know
How
what.
tall are you? Just to paint
I'm 6'1".
for those who watched me on social media, like I'm 5'5" and 120 pounds. So you being 6'1" and a little over 120 pounds, that is from going from 180.
I'll send you some photos too, so you can see it.
I've seen them on your website. I'll definitely post those.
Yeah.
This is so traumatic. I'm so sad. Just thinking.
I know. I always know if I'm doing a pretty good job telling the story. If people look back, it's real, right? Because I chalk it up sometimes because I've been through it. It's okay now, but it's a real thing that can happen to these young kids that have JIA and stuff, right? So yeah. So at this point, I'm telling my dad, I'm holding his hand. He's like just getting angry. He's like, you're not gonna fucking die. Like, we got work to do. You're okay. You're gonna be fine. Stop talking like that. But I'm like, I know, but like I need to say these things. So I gave him like a note for like my little sister who was 8 at the time, my brother, these things. I'm a very family oriented guy. So for me, it was like, that was the worst thing ever. And I've always wanted kids so bad. And I'm like, I can't believe I'm not gonna be a dad. This is like the worst feeling ever. And I remember all these doctors are saying to me, like, if you recover, it's going to take you years to be yourself again. It's going to take you forever. And which I get, they're being honest, right? Because the average person would have a really tough time with recovering from that disease and what I went through. But luckily, one of the doctors guessed macrophage activation syndrome. And it was like a Hail Mary. They started treating for it. It was a specialized medication, anakinra, that it's a biologic as well that helps heal liver, kidney function. They got me on it. And I was taking 4 of these needles twice a day. And within 3 or 4 days, I didn't even mention this. I had fever this entire time. And I wasn't able to drink water or fluid or eat. So I'm just sweating every day, having fever dreams. It was such a horrific experience when it comes to those things. I literally was hallucinating. It was terrible. And so luckily I got out, and I remember the first day in like where I was out of this bad slump in the hospital, they said, all right, we're gonna get the physios here to get you walking. And I'm very like, I want to do it myself type of thing. And they're talking about walkers and this, and then I grabbed the walker, I did it. I took, I think, 5 steps. My mom took a picture of it. And literally right after that picture, I like hit the walker over out of like frustration. I was like, Mom, come here. I don't want this fucking walker. I'm going to do it myself. Right. And I just grabbed her shoulder. I'm like shuffling in my bench flippers from Walmart in my robe. And they're like, okay, you can only walk 5 minutes at a time. So I told my mom, hey, I know this really cool spot. It's cool over there because I was warm. Okay. We go to the stairs. And I said to my mom, we're walking up these fucking stairs. Okay.
Right.
And she's like, Zachary, no.
As an occupational therapist, I cannot condone this approach. However, you are an unusual individual, so it clearly works.
Yeah. No, I know. You're probably like, you're like screaming, what's wrong with this guy? But I was like, we're going to the stairs. We're doing 5 steps up to one little flight. It's 8. But it was the hardest 8 steps of my life. I'm not joking. Like I had no strength, right? I'm 120 some odd pounds. Like I haven't even been on my feet in 3.5 weeks or so. It was crazy. And I remember every morning I would look forward to my everything bagel with cream cheese. That was my mom would bring that to me from Tim Hortons. And the one day she couldn't bring them. My brother was visiting. And I call him like, hey, when are you coming? He's 11 a.m. What do you mean? Blood work's at 5. You got to be here for 6 with my bagel. And I'm not even joking. I was so angry at him because it was like the only thing I looked forward to in my day was this friggin' bagel. I'm stuck in bed and I had my routine, right? It became, that was the most important part of my day. So that's one of the nurses. And this is the thing about belief, right? And finding purpose in things. I said to my nurse, I need my bagel. I'll give you $100 if you can go get it. You don't need to pay me. I'll go get it. That's so funny. And then she comes to my room when she's supposed to bring it. She's like, I'm so sorry, Zac. We're so busy. I can't go. But she's not my nurse. So she's like, if you want, you can go get it. I'm like, what do you mean? But I'm not supposed to leave my bed. So you just have your post. Like when you go to the washroom, like when I go to the washroom, I was going to the bathroom with a bedpan for 2 weeks. I'm like, oh, true. So I grabbed this thing and I just walk, and I'm like walking aimlessly. And I remember that Silk Sonic album by Bruno Mars and Anderson .Paak just came out, and I just kept listening to it on repeat. And I was like, I felt like I was in a movie. I go to the elevator, I go down, and I bought 3 bagels, iced coffees, iced caps, donuts, all this stuff. And I remember I was like, I'm going to make it. Like that's how I was like, I'm making it. I'm going to live. And I was so excited. And then from the next day, I'm like, I want to be discharged. I want out of the hospital, right? And like, it was actually 7 days after that, they got me out and I was able to go home. And of course, there was a lot of other troubles that I had to face from that. The recovery process was so hard. And I fought every single day to get an ounce of myself back. I got to a point where it was unhealthy and I was fighting so hard to become who I was before that I was losing myself and I was getting sick. I was falling, hurting myself. I crapped my pants deadlifting one time, not even joking, because I pushed myself too hard. And then my appendix burst, like I said earlier. And that was when I got a reality check. Okay, you're not going to win back 13 years of hard work in 3 months. You have the skills, you have the knowledge, you know what you got to do. But you just have to be patient. You have to give yourself some grace, which is something I've never really done. So it gave me a new perspective of, okay, I should just be happy that I'm here. I should be happy that I'm able to continue moving on. And it showed me how devastating arthritis could be. Like I'm sure many people watching this had no clue that this type of stuff could even happen. I didn't. And I thought I knew a lot. So
Yeah.
I'm talking so much.
Oh, no, you're so funny. That's how I am when I'm on a podcast. But then the people are like, you're literally like, we invited you to talk. That's why you're here at the podcast. No, but I know what you mean. First of all, this is just a really powerful story. I feel like you need to like be a spokesperson for everything bagels. And this dude was so motivated. He, against medical advice, went down to get the bagel. No, but on the more serious note, I do like to sprinkle in, evidence and scientific kind of citations. So macrophage activation syndrome actually occurs in 10% of children with systemic JIA, which, as you said, so JIA is juvenile idiopathic arthritis. It's an umbrella term, just like arthritis is an umbrella term for a bunch of different conditions. So systemic JIA is the most serious type. It's the most similar to adult rheumatoid arthritis. And it is the one that has this 10% risk of developing macrophage activation syndrome. Yeah, I know it's Monday morning quarterback, but I do feel like in your case, I mean, I went to this camp this weekend and literally it was the first presentation that a pediatric rheumatologist gave to the parents is, basics. It was called JIA 101. And it was like, hey, we don't want to scare you, but like, this is something to look out for. If your kid suddenly develops high fever, suddenly has this stuff like, look out for macrophage activation syndrome. So it's possible too that just in different parts of the world, it's more recognized than others. But
It just
it
shows
does
that I got it at 24 as well, which is
that. Well, this is where
weird.
it also gets confusing because I think you you actually carry the diagnosis into adulthood. So, and the reason they actually changed the name from juvenile rheumatoid arthritis to juvenile idiopathic arthritis is to help providers and doctors understand that these actually are two different illnesses. For example, adult rheumatoid arthritis much more rarely affects the jaw. Juvenile
Mm,
idiopathic arthritis often affects the jaw, stuff like
I
that.
have that.
And juvenile idiopathic arthritis, whether it's systemic or not, is actually statistically more likely to go into remission in adulthood than adult rheumatoid arthritis. Like I was
Mhm.
diagnosed with adult RA at 21. So even though like I was only, let's say someone else got diagnosed with JIA at 18, only 3 years difference than me,
Mhm.
an adult, but I am much less likely to achieve remission just statistically. But yeah, macrophage activation syndrome is just, and I'm looking at it online to make sure I say it right, but it's basically when your innate immune system becomes overactive and it can just be spontaneous. It can be a result of, sounds like no one knows for sure, but it could be a result of, your disease being more active and your body's trying to, fight itself. And I wanted to go to the point that you were starting to make at the end of your story, which I think is so, I'm glad you made that point because I don't want people to get the sense that everyone should go rogue or against medical advice and like just be like mind, because mind over matter is helpful to a point, but we do
Of
have
course.
physical limitations. And again, that thin line between delusion and optimism,
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
Yeah.
I totally agree with what you're saying.
How did you find that like ability to accept the need? You had to learn to pace yourself and learn that give yourself some grace.
Yeah. Well, it was just kind of forced upon me by what was happening in my life, right? Like I was seeing my own relationships with my family and like my partner and all these different things kind of just shifting in a negative way because my intensity of trying to make myself who I was before was not a healthy way of doing it. And, I went to see my rheumatologist. It was a good friend of mine now. And he's like, Zach, like, you've done the impossible 7 or 8 times. Like, once in a while, go on a vacation, have a drink, and he's not for alcohol, just because your cortisol levels are so out of whack because you're putting so much pressure on yourself that you're not helping yourself. Like you've said, that going rogue and doing things your own way to make it better can only work if you're in a good spot, like with your homeostasis and your stress levels, all these different things. So I came to the conclusion that I wasn't enjoying anything. I was just trying to get to the end result, which was feeling who I was before, where now 4 years later, almost now, I feel the best I've ever felt. I have the most purpose. My body's the best it's ever been, both physically and like spiritually. Everything is back in alignment. And if anything, I've made it past where I thought I even wanted to get to. And that was because I took that time to realize this. And I do want to jump on that point about, you know, not relying solely on your own abilities. Because when I was younger, I was like anti-medicine because of course I didn't want to be on it. I didn't want to get needles anymore, of course, which I totally empathize with. But it's a very ignorant way of looking at things. You have to look at everything as a tool. I'll never say that if you do strength training, you'll never need medicine again. That's a silly thing to say, but you should utilize your rheumatologist or your specialist, the medication that you're given, your treatment plan, and then your lifestyle as a team and not as one's better than the other. It should be working together to create the lifestyle and the treatment plan that's going to work for you, right? I'm sure you've heard it many times, especially nowadays. People have lost a lot of trust with doctors and medications. And I think it's unfortunate because just because of some political thing that did happen a few years back, that was way after all these biologics came out. That was way after all these amazing medicine and treatment plans came out. And doctors have been helping people for hundreds of years, right? So we should still have trust within our medical systems and with our doctors and our healthcare professionals because they do want to help you, right? They're not going to get it right every single time and it sucks, but it's human error. It's life. It's going to happen. You have to just try again. If this medication plan doesn't work for you, it's okay. next one will come, and the next one will come, and then we'll find what works for you, right? I don't ever want to discredit doctors or medications because I think that's an ignorant thing to do as somebody who is healthy now, because I got lucky. I got the right biologic on the first try after 3 other medications didn't work. That's amazing. I've met a lot of young kids that went through 5, 6 different biologics and they finally found the one that worked. And then 7 years later, it doesn't anymore. So it's tough, but it's the reality of this thing, right?
Yes. You're 100% speaking to one of my most favorite soapboxes. So those who listen to a lot of episodes know that, yeah, I think the synopsis for me is it's not either or, it's both and. It's very statistically rare, particularly for adult rheumatoid arthritis, to experience a prolonged unmedicated remission. That's just the facts. So you
Yeah.
may experience a prolonged unmedicated remission, and that's great. But just know that for me, that's not a meaningful goal for me personally, because I have a lot of risk factors that make it like clear that most likely statistically I will be on medications the rest of my life until there's a cure or unless there's a cure. And I have literally no problem with that because they work, you know?
If it's not changing your lifestyle, who cares, right? Like it's a needle prick here and there, and it is what it is. But once again, I know people hate hearing like it could be worse, but it really could be, right? There's diabetics that have to do their insulin 3, 4, 5 times a day. That is inconvenient. You know what I mean? So just be thankful that you're still here and you still have the choice to move forward, right? But I do want to get into the strength training.
Yes, like go for it. Yeah. Why is strength training so important? We've had a few episodes on this, but I never know if people are listening to the back catalog. So go ahead.
It might be different, right? And here's a presentation that I want to give to you. And I met with my rheumatologist and I spoke to a few other rheumatologists over the weekend about this and my way of thinking. It was my theory. And like I said, I'm just a personal trainer, strength coach who has lived with arthritis and has utilized it for myself. And honestly, I've worked with 50 or 60 different people with RA, JIA, and everything. And this system has worked. And it's not because of what I've done, but what it is that we're doing. I think that is the most effective part. Is if we break down what arthritis is and the symptom of it, it's inflammation, chronic inflammation. And that is not a good thing, right? It hurts, it causes pain, immobility, all the shitty things you can think of. But then we talk about strength training. Like, Zac, you always say strength training. I get it. What is that? Short-term inflammation. So why would that be good for us? It doesn't really make sense. It doesn't sound like it makes sense, right? And it hurts. It does hurt. And it's uncomfortable for a lot of people, especially people suffering with flare-ups or have their arthritis. But it does something that we don't realize. So to build your bone density, especially for women when you're going through menopause, perimenopause, the only way to do it is through heavy strength training, 1 to 5 rep range. That's not easy to do right away, but eventually you'll get there by following the process. But when we're strength training, we're exercising, we're creating short-term inflammation. Your body creates an adaptation to that short-term inflammation that creates muscle growth, tendon growth, ligament, joint integrity, bone density, all these different things. But not only is it doing that, it's also getting more efficient at dealing with that short-term inflammation. And over time, while you become more efficient at dealing with the short-term inflammation, your body's homeostasis level of dealing with inflammation improves and improves. And it's not day in and day out, it's month, year. And I'm at 14 years of strength training. My ability to recover from inflammation is significantly better than 14 years ago, Zac Spinosa, right? And that wasn't because of an accident. It was by design. A design I didn't even know existed, but it happened, right? So when we take on people, I'm working with a girl right now, she's 16. She wasn't able to squat. She wasn't able to hang. She couldn't do anything, severe pain. Her mom was showing me her MRIs and the amount of damage, and it was terrible. I said, amazing. This is terrible. Go have a coffee in my brother's coffee shop next door, and I'm going to work with your daughter and see what we can do. She was actually up to take up as well. And I took her daughter and I just kind of gauged how she was feeling, both mentally, physically. And I told her this, what I'm saying here, in a much simpler way, in a more kid-friendly way. And then the girl was like, I'm ready to go. Let's do this. And I showed her how to use her body. She has a little ankle fusion. So I added a high heel elevation to allow her to bend her ankles with a little bit extra help passively, right? And because of this, she was able to squat to full depth with no pain. And not only was she like excited, she was blown away, which then made her believe, oh my God, I could do so much more. And now this was 4 weeks ago now. And this girl went from having a hard time getting in and out of bed. Like sometimes showers were tough. she had to call off work as a waitress because she was like, I can't do it. It's hurting. To like, she's calling me like, hey, can I exercise more? Can I do more? And I'm like, that's amazing, but let's just stick to the plan. Let's stay smart with it. And now she's squatting with 65 pounds in her hand, all the way down and up, pain-free. And she says her overall day-to-day knee pain is almost completely gone. It went from 8 to 2 out of 10. Her hip pain is completely gone. And she had some lower back stiffness and tightness. And I think that was just from lack of movement, to be honest with you. And now that's gone as well. And that's just 3 weeks. And I'm not saying it's going to be like that for everybody, but the stronger you have, the more armor you have, and the more you can, strengthen your body, the easier it will be to fight off these issues, and the easier it will be to function day to day, right? So the other part of my macrophage activation syndrome, the doctors all had said to me, you came in here with so much muscle mass that your body was able to utilize that and eat away at that while it gave us enough time to figure out your diagnosis to save your life. So if you came in here unhealthy, eating like crap, drinking, not exercising, you would be dead. You would not be alive. So that's something that I realized I'm so thankful for. Whether you have chronic pain or not, everybody should be strength training. Women should be strength training. If they want to reduce their chances of osteoporosis with menopause, it's the most important thing you should be doing. And we're not talking 6 days a week, screaming and curling in the mirror, just 4 different movement patterns per day, 2-3 days a week for 60 minutes. So much can happen. So that's my presentation.
I love it. No, I mean, I'm like nodding enthusiastically. This is an audio medium. So for those not watching the YouTube, I'm nodding. And I think you explained beautifully that I think I've mentioned in other episodes, there's so many paradoxes for having autoimmune disease and especially rheumatoid arthritis. And one of them is that that you are supposed to listen to your body, but sometimes like for fatigue, there's a clear pattern that when people consistently engage in exercise, people with RA and other forms of inflammatory arthritis, their fatigue levels significantly go down along with pain. And you're thinking, okay, pain makes sense from like a mechanical perspective. Your muscles are stronger and your tendons are stronger. You're supporting the joint. But why would fatigue get better? It's this irony or the paradox that you have to sometimes expend energy to gain energy, right? And one of the mechanisms is that you're moving more efficiently, right? Your body's not as exhausted because you have the strength to help you move. But I have a little theory, and this is totally armchair theory, but I feel it's not just physical fatigue. Oh, I feel like I need to take a nap. When I started strength training, there was a distinct improvement in my cognitive function. I feel like the blood is flowing better to my brain. That's my theory.
Yeah. Well, there was a study out of an Australian university that was showcasing that physical exercise, strength training in particular, was 98% more effective than the leading SSRIs for mental health. You think about that side of things, being depressed and scared and anxious about your pain and your disease completely can debilitate you physically, as well as the disease itself, right? So I agree with your armchair theory, because I have the same one, where it's when you're expending that energy, and not only are you getting stronger, which is a physiological trait, which is awesome, but your mind is getting stronger, your belief in yourself is improving, and your ability to take on hard things and do hard things gets better. I own a business. Problems happen all the time. Things are going to happen. My first 4 years of it, I was stressed out of my mind. Now, if somebody steals one of the treadmill magnets out of the gym, instead of me getting angry and punching the wall like an idiot, I look at one of my employees and say, okay, somebody go to Canadian Tire, $10. The problem's solved. You get better at dealing with this stress, and your body through exercise is getting better at adapting to pain and to becoming more tenacious, which in essence would become more efficient at dealing with that. And that's why that fatigue in my mind is getting reduced.
Yeah, that's a really good theory. And I do want to be clear that anyone who's looked into the evidence for exercise in rheumatoid arthritis, it's very clear that there's a positive relationship between cardiovascular and strength training and reducing pain and fatigue, improving emotional, coping. It's what we don't know is precisely why and how, and as opposed to a TNF inhibitor, it's like we can see the little cell going in there and be like, it's inhibiting. Yeah. But I did want to share that just to support your points. In 2022, the American College of Rheumatology put out the first ever integrative health guidelines for rheumatoid arthritis. And it's the first time a professional association has put one out. And integrative just means non-pharmaceutical in this case, or non-pharmacological. And they're the most strongly recommended intervention of all the interventions they looked at. Everything from chiropractic, massage, strength training, occupational therapy, physical therapy, all the different diets. The strongest recommended intervention was consistent engagement and exercise. Like, that's
Beautiful.
the top of the list. Also, in 2023, EULAR, the European League Against Rheumatism, EULAR put out the first ever, it's a rheumatology association in Europe, put their first ever guidelines about fatigue, the management of fatigue in rheumatic and musculoskeletal diseases. And guess what? One of the recommendations is exercise, and they did say specific programs that are developed in conjunction with a trained like physical therapist if possible. But obviously in your case, someone with an expertise in their lived experience and expertise as a personal trainer can be worth the weight in gold. So I'm just, again, sprinkling those evidence tidbits into there to say that we're not just speaking from like anecdotal evidence. This is like replicated in multiple studies why this is so important.
Oh yeah. It's incredible when I have people with arthritis come in and they have MRIs done, or they have all these different scans done on themselves. And then they work with us, let's say 6 months. I have a team that work under me now as well. They all follow the same modalities of training. I have physios as like colleagues that I've asked for help if I ever am in a pickle, I don't fully understand something. And they come back with their scan 6 months later, and it's like they're seeing such incredible increases with their joint integrity. Their bone density is improved, right? Their muscles are way bigger and way stronger, and their pain is gone, or it's so low that they're not even worried about it anymore, right? So obviously I'm extremely passionate about it, and it sucks because I seem biased because I sell fitness as a living, but I believe so wholeheartedly in it. And there's a reason we don't do group training stuff here. We don't do boot camps, because obviously those are fine modalities of community fitness, but they are not the things that are going to make a significant impact in your overall health and well-being. So for my own integrity, I don't sell those things. So I've always, within fitness and within my brand, I've been so high about integrity, and it's a missing thing in many spaces now. Of course, I'm sure you know all about that. And it's amazing to see that strength training finally getting the love it deserves. And it's what people need and what they should have. And remember, 50, 60 years ago, the majority of people's the workforce, they were in physical labor, where whether it's strength training or not, if you're lifting an engine at General Motors by hand and helping move it, you're building strength and you're building bone density up just through your daily life activities, right? Like, our body doesn't know we're in the gym. It just feels the stimulus. That's why we didn't have such high amounts of problems. Obviously, back then, we didn't have the medication. So people became more disabled and crippled by the disease itself because they didn't have incredible things like biologics. But like you said, the integrative side of things was just more built into our lifestyle.
Yeah, it was, this is such a little anecdote, but when we went to Disneyland, I remember I was like having a little bit more joint swelling and pain than usual. For me, it's like usually like around 2 or 3. It's not that bad. But I was like, oh shoot, we're going to be walking a lot. And I was like, I hope I'm going to be okay. And I noticed each day we were there, even though I was walking so much, I was like, oh, I shouldn't be surprised by this. I was feeling better and better each day. And I was like,
Yeah,
oh,
'cause
right.
you got used to it.
Motion is lotion. And, I was getting the joints moving. But I'm really glad you said the thing about, it's true that when you are first getting in shape, you will typically be feeling a little worse for a couple of weeks. I know, like on episode 117, I talked to a physical therapist, Dr. Steinbargner, and she said she has a clinic for people with arthritis up in Maine. And she said tells our patients, just give me at least 2 weeks, give it 2 weeks. You might be feeling worse for 2 weeks and then start to feel better slowly. So know that I actually just had my first personal training session in 3 weeks because I'd been traveling. And even though I've been doing a lot of walking and other things, I hadn't been staying up with my home program. And I was feeling last night like, oh yeah, my joints feel worse, but I'm like, this is normal. This is part of, I'm getting back into the routine of my strength training, so I think a lot of people give up because they try it once or twice and then they feel worse and then they don't want to keep doing it.
The first week of training for everybody is absolutely horrendous. Like, it feels like if you aren't even a person with a disease and you work out, and especially if you do too much on your first workout, it's terrible. Like, we take people through squatting, benching, deadlifting, and then some sort of pull down or a row. And that's all we do, 2 sets of that on everybody's first time assessment. And people who are in good shape come in and they're like, oh my God, I can't walk. So it's like, you have to be a little more intelligent with your approach, because no matter what, the first few days of it are going to suck, but your body adapts so fast. And that's why it's so beautiful to see this adaptation and protocol with strength training becoming more pushed by the rheumatologists and the physios out there. So it's been really cool for me to see.
Yeah, well, you're doing amazing work. And I have a few rapid fire questions if you have time.
Yeah.
Okay,
Let's
perfect.
do it. Yeah.
What are some of your best words of wisdom for people who are newly diagnosed with inflammatory arthritis?
Let's so come a few words. You keep focused on three different things. I think 3 words: maintain belief, get strong, and believe in perseverance. Have perseverance in you. Tenacious. You have to be tenacious. Like, these are the things that you need.
I actually thought of the word tenacity. I was like, I was thinking about episode titles and I'm like, I feel like we have to put tenacious in the title because that's really that. If you could rename your gym, it could be like Tenacious Gym.
Yeah, we're forged, right? Because it's about
Forged.
building yourself. It's about creating something. Right? So,
Oh,
yeah,
that's easier to say. So that's even better.
yeah, love it.
Forging tenacity.
Love it.
Love it. Do you have a favorite quote or inspirational saying for tough days?
Well, I'll use the one that my dad said to us as kids. It's not grammatically correct. I have it tattooed on my leg, and it was when we were kids. He used to go, "Be good, stay strong, don't take no shit," and that's what it was always about, right? Being good to people, not taking shit from anybody, and always being strong and strong-minded.
I love that's so cute. I can hear that in your dad's voice, even though I haven't met him.
Yeah.
Described him really well.
Yeah,
I'm so sorry. I'm just so glad you're still here. I'm just
thank
glad,
you.
very glad that, and I know your story is going to change a lot of people's lives and hopefully save some people's lives if they start noticing these symptoms in their kids, you know?
That's my biggest goal, Cheryl. This year, I really put. I had no followers on Instagram, like almost 1,000, like beginning of the year, and I really put this story. And I'm at like 3,400 now, which is okay. Like I go to so many different events and things and just talk about arthritis, whether it's an arthritis event or not. And I know we're going to hit it big and change a lot of lives. And I want to put a book out, really help kids, especially, right? Because when I would tell you the story, I started getting teary eyed. I was like, oh shit, man, this is actually kind of crazy what I went through. So, yeah.
No, and
Sorry, you keep asking.
yeah, no, and I just want to say really quick, I always try to remember to say, thank you for sharing your story because I got teary eyed to listen to yours. And I also get teary eyed talking about mine. And mine's more of a straightforward case of medical gaslighting. Like my life was not in peril, but it's really hard to feel helpless. And it takes a lot to get someone like me, and I think you too, of an optimistic, kind of tenacious person to feel helpless. And in my case, I did feel helpless when I was having a hard time getting taken seriously by the medical community. And it's always kind of emotional to talk about that story. So thank you. Do you have a favorite arthritis gadget or tool in your toolbox? I've seen some cool lifting things, like lifting life hack things.
So, like, when I was first training, like, there's a few tools. Like, I'll give you some strength training tools for people with arthritis, because I think these are important. So, a safety squat bar is something that can sit. It has a cushion, not the cushion on your back, like those ones you should never use. Those are terrible. But this one has a cushion over the back and over your shoulders. So it takes a lot of the load off your spine and allows, like, and especially in this position, because a lot of people with arthritis, tight shoulders, they're not able to get back here like this, right? And even with their wrist, even for me, I trained my wrist for 10 years to finally be able to wrap my thumbs around the bar. Not even joking. But now with this, it sits in front of you. You're able to hold the handles. It's a lot more ergonomic for people with arthritis. That's one. Straps. So if you have bad grip strength and you have pain in your hands when holding things, there's so many amazing things like figure eights, which you can wrap around your hands and loop around the bar to do rows with, to do your deadlifts. And then even for me, when I lost the ability to use my hands for about a month, if you ever see those girls doing like the glute kickback on Instagram, you use one of those and you put it on your wrist and you attach it to a cable machine. You can do your pressing and pulling motions without using your hand. So those are some tools that I've utilized for myself and other arthritis patients.
I love that, especially for me, my biggest involvement is in my fingers, and I am able to wrap around and everything. But there are times when it's like my fingers fatigue before the muscle I'm targeting. So those tools are super helpful. This is okay if you don't have one, but do you have a favorite book or a movie or show you've watched recently?
I haven't watched a single show in 6 months, which is crazy. But if I was going to give a book recommendation to people with arthritis, it would be, I know it's probably so cheesy, but like The Alchemist. I think that's such an incredible book by Paulo Coelho for anybody who's dealing with adversity and struggle and finding their path forward. It's one that you're going to want to read probably twice a year because you'll find new things. Have you ever read it before?
No, it's been on my
It's
list.
a short read. It's a short read. I read it every year, and it's so funny. The characters that you relate to. I remember relating to one when I first got diagnosed, and I'll give you a quick excerpt of the one story. So there's a story in it where the main character meets this king in the middle of the desert, and he says, I want you to walk around. You'll walk around this entire palace and carry that spoon with oil. And I need you to not drop any bit of the oil, or you'll never speak to me again and never get any of my riches. So the kid walks around and he's walking through all these different rooms and these crazy things for about an hour. He gets to the king, and the king says, what did you see? And he's like, nothing. I saw the oil. He's like, so you walked through all my beautiful palace, my gardens, and this and that, and you saw nothing but the oil? Do it again. But then this time he walks around and he fills the oil. And the whole method of this, the whole thing behind it, I'm butchering it, I think, but the whole thing is like, you can't walk through life with your blinders on and forget all the beauty around you and only be focused on the pain or the suffering or the goal. In my case, where I'm happy, but all I'm focused on is this end goal. You have to enjoy the things around you, but then you also can't forget about the things that are close to you while you're chasing after these beautiful things around you. Right. So that's one of the small stories within this. And I think it's an incredible book that everybody should read.
Oh, awesome. Well, you definitely convinced me. Yeah. Oh my gosh, it has 3 million ratings on Goodreads.
Yeah.
I don't know why I haven't read it. It's going on my list now.
There's a little religious undertones, but
Okay.
you can just get past them. Fine.
Yeah. Okay. What does it mean to you to live? This is the question, the central question this podcast is trying to answer through the storytelling and the personal reflections. But what does it mean to you to live a good life and thrive with autoimmune disease or rheumatic disease?
For me, I think I need to be able to do everything that any other person can do, whether I have the disease or not, and find a way, whether it's the way that they would do it or it's a way somebody who has restrictions and things like that. And for me, I feel like I have a chip on my shoulder a bit from all the things I've been through, and want to have a crazy, amazing life and leave a legacy behind me that's like really important. And becoming a father eventually is huge to me, and being able to, like, I look at every decision I make. If I had kids and they were going through, would I be proud of the decision I'm about to make, or if they were going to make that decision? So if there's moments where I want to give up and there's times where I don't want to do the things that I know I should do, if I was the father myself, would I be proud of them, right? And then if I have somebody looking up to me to be like their superhero, would I be giving up? You know what I mean? So for me, it's all about creating a legacy and creating an aura around myself that shows tenacity, like we talked about, shows perseverance, and full-heartedly belief within myself and what I'm capable of because of this disease. This disease molded me and forged me into who I am today. Like the pain, every single second I've dealt with it has been a blessing, because it's a constant reminder that I'm still here. And I'm, even with that shit that sucks every single day, I'm still making it through to the next day. I have 100% survival rate. So there's nothing I can't achieve if I work for it, right?
I love that. That's amazing. And I'm sure your future kids will be proud of you. It's kind of strange to think that they could find this video. I don't know if there will be YouTube. And
Yeah, you never know.
YouTube will be like a chip in our brains. But no, thank you so much. This is great. And you mentioned your Instagram channel.
Yeah.
You just say the handle in case people want to.
Yeah. Zac, Z-A-C, the arthritis coach. So the hardest part is getting my name spelled right. Z-A-C or Z-A-C, as you would say it over there. The arthritis coach.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, and I will put links to your gym in the show notes, as well as links to, your Instagram page, and also the research that I mentioned, just because I think it's good to have.
Some people need to see it, yeah.
And they need to see it because it says, sometimes it does seem like too good to be true. But, I think my last little soapbox is, I think a lot of people, lifestyle variables aren't either or, right? But a lot of people just only want to focus on nutrition, it seems. It's just my observation. And I feel like strength training is easier than nutrition, because nutrition, you just do it multiple times a day. Whereas, you know what I mean? Anyway, maybe it's because I'm a former athlete, or current athlete, whatever.
Just comfort isn't fun for people, right? So
Yeah.
eating, as much as it like sucks not eat a cookie or something, it's easier to not do something than it is to do something.
Well, that's actually a great point. The restriction, which I am definitely against a lot of the extremely restrictive diets. I like to
Yeah.
provide the evidence because the evidence for strength and training and exercise is a lot more uniform than the evidence on nutrition. And it doesn't mean that
Mhm.
it's not going to come in the future. There might be better evidence in the future, but it's if I had to only choose one lifestyle thing to do for my body, it would be exercise and strength training, followed by
Mhm.
sleep. Sleep is really important. Personally,
I've
there's
been
some
missing
people,
that lately.
and this is not to say for those who anecdotally, if your needle is moved so strongly by nutrition, that's amazing. I'm not knocking it.
Sure.
I think a lot of people's default assumption before they become informed is that like the diets are going to be the most important, and that's not really the case in the evidence necessarily at the population level. So anyway, but back to your story. This is about your story, and I'm grateful to you for taking the time today, and I'm sure we'll have hopefully lots of follow-up questions. Make sure to comment on YouTube if you have any questions or reflections from the episode, and also on Instagram or Spotify or wherever you're listening. So thank you so much again, Zac. You're off to great things. I can't wait to read your book too when you write it.
Thank you, Cheryl. I'm sure we'll talk again soon for sure.
Okay,
Thank you so much. Have a great day. Bye.
Thank you so much for listening. This podcast is supported by Room to Thrive, an educational program I created to help empower you to live life to the fullest with rheumatic disease. In the program, you're going to learn evidence-based tools for managing all the ways rheumatic disease affects your life. And my goal is to help you go from overwhelmed to confident, supported, and connected in a matter of weeks. You can go through the pre-recorded modules on your own in the self-paced course, or you can take the course along with a robust support group of new arthritis friends to support you and cheerlead you along the way. Learn more in the link in my show notes, or you can always go to www.myarthritislife.net. And if you like this podcast, I'd be so honored if you took the time to rate and review it. I also encourage you to share it with anyone you know who might benefit from it. I also want to remind you that you can find full transcripts, videos, and detailed show notes with hyperlinks for each episode on the Arthritis Life website, plus full episode videos on the Arthritis Life YouTube channel. If you have any ideas for content for future episodes, or you want to share your story on the podcast, please send me, Cheryl, an email at info@myarthritislife.net. I can't wait to hear from you, and thanks so much again for your time.